Hail all, this is Mirrors for Origins. Down your host talking to you live, or not live, but on a video. Today I want to talk about Star Trek Seasons 3 and 4. I'm going to do 2 seasons at a time. I'm on 5 right now, about halfway done. Then I'll do 5 and 6 and 7. I think there's only 7 seasons. I'll wrap it up with the final season. The overall feeling of 3 and 4 is I think they're really improved since 1 and 2. 1 and 2 had some rocky, they had really great episodes, and some episodes were like, nah. I got a rocky start, but as the seasons grow, the characters really flourish. Data is still one of my favorite characters. Worf is really growing as a character, especially in the 5th season. Or not, the 5th season, but in 3 and 4. Some of the episodes that I really enjoyed is season 3, episode 3, the survivors. I'm trying to think of what episode that was. I just looked them all up. God, I just looked these up too. I should have made a little note. But anyways, just say episode 3, the survivors. Episode 4, who watches the Watchers. All right, the Watchers, the Watch. I remember that episode very well. There's an outpost who's watching a kind of like almost a Romulan, almost like a Romulan cult, a race in a way. They get the point of years and stuff. They believe in logic and stuff like that also. They have an outpost there just watching them, and they don't know the outpost is there until an accident happens and they get exposed. Picard goes to rescue. The doctor, saves a life. Hello, sorry about that. I had to pause the video for a second. So if you see a little blank, that's why. Anyways, I was talking about the Watch. Who watches the Watchers? This is a very good episode, I think, because it really showed what would happen if advanced race interfered accidentally. Because it was an accident. It was, she brought them aboard. They tried to wipe their mind, but it ended up they couldn't wipe the memories like they wanted to. One of the villagers got injured, almost died. So Dr. Crusher took him on board, healed him, dropped him back off. And unfortunately, his daughter also saw him get taken. So then Picard, he witnessed Picard being the leader. Everybody was, so he thought Picard was a god. Oh my God, the god. Yeah, so he has to try to bring the alien races aboard, try to explain to them that he is not a god. He was sorry about that because they tried to say that, they're praying and sacrificing again, and he had to make sure that his name wouldn't be used in that way. I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to become a god. Wars could be started over your name and everything. That would suck. And the responsibility of being a god would be freaking crazy. But it was very interesting how he tried to deal with it, and then they didn't really understand at first, but finally they learned. He took an arrow to the shoulder, and it showed blood, which revealed that he's not a god, that he's just a more advanced race. He explains to them that it could be harmful to their people if they stay any longer. So they closed up shop, and they left. The enemy. This one was a decent one. This one had the Romulans were hidden on a planet, crashed onto a planet with some kind of, my guess is they were taking some kind of ship or testing a ship, and it crashed on the planet. One of their guys died in custody because they couldn't heal him. Worf had the blood that would be able to transmute, but not only did the Klingon refuse his blood, but Worf refused to give his blood to an enemy. It was against his beliefs, and he hates the Romulans due to them killing his parents. And then you have Forge stuck on the planet. So Forge works with he actually gets knocked unconscious by an enemy. Then the electrical storms affect his visor, so he can no longer see. So they had to work together. Him and Romulan had to work together to get saved. And when they do, they bond a little bit. So there's a little, I think, a future glimpse of what could happen between the Romulan and the Federation if they become, peaceful. The next one's the Vengeance Factor. This one was an interesting one. They have these group called, what do they call it? The Gatherers. Kind of like this little band of thieves and stuff trying to steal. They've been raiding Federation outposts, stealing everything they can, and anything that's not bolted down and fleeing. And so they contact the alien world that these gatherers come from. The person said their world had clan wars for centuries, and it almost destroyed their entire people. Excuse for the outside noise. A second, I'll pause it. Anyways, sorry about the noise. So Riker starts liking this. One of the ambassador's cooks, or she's like the ambassador or like the ruler or something. That's my guess. Well, she has like authority, and one of the servants is a cook who's pretty cute. And Riker starts to get to know her, actually starts to like her a lot. And it turns out she's actually there to... She was there to... Sorry for all the pauses. There's a lot of pauses in this movie. I'm kind of having to try to cut the background noise out a little bit. She was engineered by her clan before they all died, that she would live longer. She had much more extended life to get revenge. And so she has pretended to be this, servant girl so she can get close to their enemies, and it's just she can assassinate them. She kills one dude, but, they figure out it was her, and then, in the end, Riker has to kill her because she won't stop. She only lives for vengeance. That's all she knows. It's only reason she survives. So in the end, she tries to kill one of the leaders of the Gatherers. It would cripple the peace. So Riker has to use his phaser and turns her to ash, pretty much. Oh man, let's see. The Defector was a really interesting one. It had a Romulan man who came saying that the Romulans were prepared to evade Federation space. He was terrified of a war starting between the two because he knew it would affect his family, it would affect his daughter. His daughter would be raised in an empire in war, if not have to serve and then die. He didn't want that to happen, so he defected, and it turned out to all be a lie. Well, he wasn't lying, but the Romulans were testing his loyalty. They fed him false information for a while, and then it turned out that the whole thing was a trap for him. So the Enterprise saves him and leaves, and he realizes he sacrificed his family, his honor, his everything, because he wanted to keep peace to a thing that was never there in the first place. So that was kind of sad. Alright, let's see. The next one is called The Haunted. The Hunted. Haunted? I think it's Haunted. God, some of these I just can't remember. I literally just wrote these down. I was looking at all the different episodes while I was doing it. I cannot remember it. I'm sorry, guys, if, this is me and my live reactions. Okay, DJQ. That was an episode I remember. Sorry about that. I'm just really distracted today. We were kind of crazy day. DJQ returns, even though he swore he never would, and he's human. The Q have thrown him out pretty much. He has caused them too many problems, blah, blah, blah. They think he's too reckless. They think he's too endangering their causes or whatever. So they kind of turned it back. So they gave him a choice what race he wants to be, whatever. And some reason he picked human, and he asked them to put him on board the Enterprise. And so it's a whole episode him learning what it is to be human. He now feels fear, pain, hunger, stuff that he hasn't felt probably ever in his life. And so he has to figure out what mortals feel like for a while, and he hates it, like hates it. And then something's going to happen, and he decides to try to sacrifice himself. Oh yeah, there's a moon falling out of orbit, and it's going to hit an alien planet, and kill everybody on the planet. And Federation was begged to intervene, somehow pull the planet or the moon away back into orbit so that it won't fall. In the end, they couldn't do it. The shuttlecraft, he used the shuttlecraft to try to help, but it would cost the person their life. And Q pretty much takes over. He goes to sacrifice himself to save the Enterprise and save the planet, and because he doesn't want to live. He doesn't want to live as human anymore. He doesn't like it. He hates it. And in a way, it's kind of endearing because he's thinking of other people other than himself. And then one of his Q friends shows up and was like, you know what? Since you're about to sacrifice yourself for these humans, we'll let you back in. So he turns it back into a Q. He's like, woohoo! It snaps everything back into place. Moon goes back in place. Everything is good now. And he's like, all right, Captain, thanks for letting me be on board. And he's like, and I'm gone. And then there's an alien. When they're trying to save the moon, another alien shows up because they find out that Q is actually human now, and they want to torture him because he pretty much tortured them forever, pay him back. And when he becomes a Q again, he like sucks them into his hand, and he's just like holding them. And he's like, "I'm going to get vengeance on you now." And it's pretty interesting. Q is, at first I didn't really like him, but he started to get interesting. Excuse me. Oh man, because the last episode, Q kind of tells Picard that he has no idea the dangers he's getting his world into, and then he exposes him to the Borg, which has a very big impact in this season, but later. Let's see. Captain's Holiday. That was a pretty good one. You mean an important character. I can never remember her name. I'm sorry about this. I cannot remember her name. She's kind of like think of like Indiana Jones if it was a woman and she stole the artifacts to sell to the highest bidder to get more money. Kind of like that. But she has this almost toxic, not toxic, what am I thinking? Allure about her that really kind of gets Picard to kind of fall in love with her in a way. And I guess him and her hook up. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. And these two guys come from the future, and they say that they're here to find this some gem or device or something that is from the future, and they need to take it back. It turns out they're actually pirates who stole the item and lost it sometime in the past, so it's been left there, hidden there. And in the end, Picard destroys it so that they can't take it with them. Other than that, I can't. There were a couple other episodes I remember: the Offsprings, Sherek. Other than that, those are just a couple of the other episodes I enjoyed. But the end of this season was really good. You really get into the Borg. The Borg appear. You find out that they're actually been the ones stealing entire colonies. As they go, they literally the whole colony just disappear. Towns and everything is gone because they're being turned into more Borg. And so Picard and like the entire Federation fleet try to step because they're going toward the Earth. And so what happens is they try to block them. And so first Picard tries to block them. They fight for a while. They get kind of too much damage. and it steals Picard. The Borg literally take Picard. And Picard thinks he can try to fight them on the inside, but in the end, they actually start turning him into a Borg, like full-on Borg, like implants in his head, and he's all freaking crazy looking. And then in part 2, they're still headed to the Earth. At the end of part 1, I believe they end up running into the entire Federation force, like 40 ships against them. Every ship gets destroyed. All crew lost. I don't think there's any survivors. So it was like devastated. They used Picard to figure out the weaknesses of the Federation ships and to discover how to get to Earth and how to pretty much get past all the defenses and all that stuff. And Picard is fully starting to become integrated. He cannot control his own actions. You see when they're putting stuff on his face and his arms, he has a tear. He starts to cry because he knows he can't fight them. They have literally taken his free will away from him, and he was scared to death. Part 2, at the end, they really fight hard. They finally do get Picard back on their ship, and they end up being able to destroy the ship. And the ship gets blown up, and so they finally they free Picard. They use Picard actually to destroy the ship. They use his data hooks into Picard, which allows him to access some of the systems of the Borg ship. And he convinced him it's time for a sleep cycle or something. So he puts everything to sleep. All the Borg systems shut down, their shields drop, their weapons don't work. They're literally like not far from Earth. And so they're all put to sleep, and so they fire into their engines, destroy the whole ship. And they start removing the implants, removing all the stuff, the Borg, and freeing Picard. Which the only thing that surprised me is how almost a little easy it was to remove all these implants, because if you look at it when he's getting turned, like shit's like graded into his very body. So the level of technology they're gonna have to remove that kind of stuff. Not just that, but like one of his arms looks like there's a part in the video, in the episode, the first part, where it looks like his arm is literally gone. Like part of his arm is gone, it's amputated. And he slides it into the like little saw thing that you always see the Borg have. And I was like, oh my god, they ruined his whole fucking arm. Like half his arm's gone. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe his hand was there, I just didn't see it. But it looked like half his arm was gone. And then like he's starting to get recovered, his arm's back. I'm like, they could grow a whole arm back? That would be fucking cool. But they ended up destroying the Borg. The only thing is, I have a problem if I've watched Enterprise. So in that Enterprise, when the Borg get destroyed, you have to destroy like every single tiny microchip or whatever you call those things, nanite, I guess you can call them, because those are what just one surviving nanite can get into somebody or technology and replicate itself constantly, and that is really dangerous. And they can. And Enterprise are actually kind of cooler because they get this like you can't touch them physically because they have these little like stabby things they'll stab you with and eject you with nanites. And they'll take over your body. So, in that sense, the Borg felt more dangerous in Enterprise than in this one. And in Enterprise, they also could change entire ships. They hook themselves up into a ship and they completely start to morph it into their own, Borg likeness. Then it goes into season 4. After at the end of that, it really goes into season 4. It goes episode 2, Family. Now this one was one of my favorite Picard episodes. Not Picard the series, but you really get to see Picard's past. He needs a break. They're getting repairs done to the Enterprise. The fleet has to rebuild, They're been devastated by the Borg attack. So this episode really showed Picard really get into his like emotions. You meet his brother, who is in charge of a winery. And he doesn't have like advanced technology, which I thought was actually pretty interesting. Like, he didn't want to technically advance the process of making wine. He didn't like replicated food or replicated wine or any of that stuff. He believed that it needs to become natural. It's better. They get a big fight. Picard finally, after the fight, Picard finally opens up to him how they took over his mind, his body. They forced him to, fire upon people he, cared for, killed so many of his own comrades due to them completely taking over his mind and body, and it really devastated him. But it was good to see him kind of open up in that way, how it did affect him, and on a level that none of us could ever imagine. Can you imagine what that would be like if I, got captured by an enemy force like China, and they literally forced my brain to give up secrets that cost men lives? That would suck. Some of the other ones I remember. Final Mission was pretty decent. It was the Wesley is now going to the academy. This is his time. I know there's been several episodes where he was supposed to go to the academy. In the end, he doesn't go. But this one is his final thing. But he goes on a cargo mission trip to help kind of see what it's like to see how Picard works and stops conflict. But unfortunately, the ship crashes on one of the moons, like a desert moon, and they have to learn how to survive. And Picard's really badly injured, and he's got to figure out how to not only take care of Picard and try to keep him alive, but also got to figure out how to get to this water source they find is protected by this alien device. They do figure out how to get to that. The cargo pilot dies because he's an idiot, doesn't want to listen to anybody, and so he gets killed. But in the end, they finally get rescued. They almost died, but they finally get to freedom. And Wesley is pretty much thanked, and he heads off to the academy. You have First Contact, which is actually a pretty good one, where Riker is disguised as an alien. They're planning on First Contact. The alien race is about to hit warp technology, so they decide to make First Contact, but unfortunately Riker gets injured in a bad explosion. He's taken to a local hospital. The hospital figures out he's an alien. Some of the people do not want this technology to advance more. They want to keep to themselves. They want to be isolationists. They want to be not about the new, but the old. And one of their security chiefs is that way. He does not want alien help. He believes they're not there for friendly terms. He believes that they're going to be a threat to them. So he tries to martyr himself by using Riker's phaser to shoot himself, by having Riker hold it, but Riker's too injured to really do anything. And by the end, it was just on stun. So he stuns himself. But the president, the guy who's the leader of the world, decides that it's not time yet for his people to accept aliens. So he kind of postpones the warp engine technology. Though the engineer who's been working on it says that she doesn't want to go back, that now that she knows that she doesn't want to stop, so she decides to ask her leader if she can actually just join the Federation, join Picard, and just leave her planet behind, leave everything behind to explore space. That's all she wants, is just explore space. And so he's like, you know what? All right, fine. So she actually joins the Enterprise crew. I don't really see her. She doesn't become like a main character, which I think would be cool if she did become like one of the main kind of characters that really, at least have an episode with her where she really start to learn about what the universe has in store, the fears, the goods, the bads, and then maybe decide to stay or decide to go back. Maybe she decides that, you know what, you're right, we're not ready. There's too much of, like, show her the Borg. Then she'd have gone home. Cupid. That was the episode where Picard is hosting a symposium on all these, scientists, archaeologists, people, and of course, guess who shows up? His little lady friend from his Captain Holiday mission, and she shows up, and he's like, "Damn." And then Q shows up, and Q's like, "Oh my God, Picard, you've got a lady friend, and she is dangerous." So he's trying to teach him a lesson about how she is his worst. He's literally his greatest weakness. And he sends him back to makes this whole Robin Hood thing happen. In the end, they actually accomplish everything. And what was funny about the episode is at the end, when she joins Q, she literally hooks up with Q. She's like, I like to keep a card, but Q can show me the entire universe at any point in time and space. So, bye! And then her and Q just disappear. So, yeah. That'll be it. I have a feeling she's gonna show back up one day, and he's gonna be like, "I can't take her anymore." Legacy, Brothers and Legacy. Now I remember what not Light Brothers, but Legacy. Legacy has to do with Worf. Really important episode of Worf. Worf gets knowledge that there's new information about his father was a traitor to the Klingons for the Romulans. So Worf challenges it, which would cost him his life. In the end, Picard has to go and help him. That was episode 6, I believe. Yeah, 6. And then Worf finds out he has a brother. And so he tries to fight it. In the end, he decides not to challenge. He decides to take his shame upon himself and not expose his brother as his brother, so that he was safe in the Klingon Empire. Because if he exposed the real traitor, it would cripple the entire infrastructure of the Klingon Empire, which caused the Empire to fall in this great civil war. And Worf decided he would sacrifice himself and his honor for the Empire, which later on, has its, at the end of this season, during to episode 26, the redemption. It has, well, technically, yeah. There's one, I can't remember, I think it's the Drumland, or I think it's the Drumland, episode 21, where the leader of the Klingon Empire comes to him, and he has to decide who's going to inherit the Empire, because he's dying. He's been poisoned slowly, and now he's dying. In the end, Worf meets his lover, who's half Klingon, half human, and he fell in love with, that they become mates or anything. So, and then he discovers he's got a kid. In the end, she ends up getting murdered by the son of the man who betrayed the Empire, the real guy who betrayed the Empire. And so he goes in revenge and kills him. He fights to the death. Worf wins, kills the guy. So only one person could take the hair of the Empire. Later on in Redemption is when he goes to him and says, "Hey, you're going to become the new leader. I want my honor back. The man who I killed is the real traitor." And then there's like this big fight in this whole thing where they find out the sisters of the guy he killed are using his son, which nobody knew he had a son, to take over the Empire. If they would have won, they would have allied with the Romulans, and the Romulans were secretly involved. Luckily, that Picard and LaForge figured out a way to send special energy beams between their ships. So he takes a fleet of 20 ships between the Klingon and Red Romulan borders to prevent any ships from getting through to supply the Klingons, which causes the sisters' support by the Romulans to completely dissipate. So they lose, and the Civil War gets ended. The person that they chose becomes the new leader of the council, leader of the Klingon, and the Civil War pretty much ends. And yeah, and they get exposed as Romulan traitors, so they had to flee. So it was pretty good. And then at the end, he reclaims Worf's honor, his family honor, so that he is no longer shunned by the Klingons. They did it pretty well. And I really enjoyed these seasons. I'm now halfway through season 5 already, so I'm really, getting up there, and I want to get these seasons done for all you guys so that I can make a live stream with a couple of my friends here on YouTube, where we could talk about Star Trek. And I know this is a long ass video, and I'm sorry about that. My next season, what I'll do is I'll write out little notes about each episode so I don't forget. I just wrote down their names. And I was looking at the episodes and the descriptions on Netflix, and then I wrote them down. I think I need the descriptions. I wish I did. But anyways, this has been a lot longer. But thank you all. If you stayed to listen, I know I kind of just drag on, and I'm not the most exciting voice on here. I'm still new at this. So I do want to get with other YouTubers and really discuss Star Trek with them, especially the next generation. Since I'm new at this, I am not a Trekkie. I never grew up with this, so I'm really getting to this the first time. As like I said before. So when I go and I do this live stream, I want people who've been long lifetime fans and people who haven't, and we'll just talk about some good Star Trek and what episodes we liked. Kind of go back and really, kind of think of what made Star Trek special to them growing up, and stuff like that. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for sitting here. If you stayed this long, if you haven't subscribed, please do. It's free. If you think I deserve it, please sub to my channel. I'm at 78, so help me get to 100, please. I really would appreciate that. And then 500 and 1,000 is my goal. So I hope you all stay safe, stay healthy, be good to each other. Peace out, guys. Enjoy.